Coming up in the latest episode of Netball Unlocked, there's an international flavour to things as we look back on a New Zealand-Australia series that had all manner of talking points. We look ahead to the Roses' return and wonder what's in store over a big 2 years. And we catch up with all the latest news from around the netball world. Hello there and welcome along. Great to be with you again, back in the chairs, aren't we, Chloe?
We are.
And we're ready to go. We've got a lot to talk about. I felt like we've spent 45 minutes just talking about what we might be talking about.
Yeah, just warming up, weren't we? Getting it all out. But yeah, there's so much, Paul. There's so much.
How have you been, first of all? What have you been up to?
I turned 30.
Of course you did. Happy birthday, Chloe.
Thank you.
Says everybody.
And I guess the listeners will be unsurprised to hear that there was some netball played on my birthday, which was beautifully organised by my husband. I didn't know. It was a surprise. He took me to a netball court off Borough High Street, so in view of the Shard, and suddenly all my friends started turning up with bibs on. And yeah, we had a great mixed netball game and everyone tried really hard and I had organised fun of an activity I enjoy. So
sounds very 30-something, yeah.
Yeah, it was excellent. And actually, I have some dark horses, some good netball players out there, some friends that have definitely not picked up a netball in a long time. So yeah, that's probably my highlight since the last episode. Paul, how about you? What's new with you?
Not a huge amount. Often running from a school perspective, and that means running around after my daughter. She's got cricket and netball, keeping her occupied. Moving house as well, which is going to keep us busy for the next couple of weeks. So yeah, quite a lot going on away from netball, to be honest. I'm trying to keep abreast of everything, obviously.
I should also say, actually, I first prop of the podcast, of the vodcast, this came from my friend down in Sydney. It's an Australian bucket hat, and it goes and it reverses for that.
That's good merch, That's good merch.
Take note, guys. This is, yeah, I'm not going to put it on, but fantastic. Thank you to my friend Ellie, who isn't a massive netball fan, but I am trying to push her to go to at least a Giants or a Swifts game eventually. So, yeah, that's probably, it's
that's
good.
Easier as well, because you told me you had other merch as well. Or are we going to wait till later for that?
Yeah, no, that's for later, because that one's quite special as well, yeah.
Okay, very good. Well, enough catching up then. We probably need to talk netball, and we were trying to put together a bit of a running order here, Chloe, weren't we? Because I think we've had Australia and New Zealand and everything that went with that, everything that always goes with that. We are just a few days away from England, New Zealand, and then off the back of that, Jamaica are over here. So there's a lot to kind of get through. So I think if we almost break it up a little bit, and it feels like let's go back to kind of almost where we were a few weeks ago, and that was the Australia New Zealand series, Constellation Cup, which obviously made plenty of headlines, both for good and for bad, and we'll get into both of those. You watched way more of this than me, according to your notes, so I'll lean into you on this. But obviously the headline news to come out of this, and I think everything, and we'll keep saying this, we have to contextualise by saying there's a Commonwealth Games year, and it's a 2-year World Cup cycle. So there is purpose now to literally everything that's going on the international stage. Not that there isn't before, but there are the two biggest tentpole moments in the sort of netball calendar coming up. So Sunday Aryang getting injured, really nasty injury. I'm going to say unnecessary injury. Is that pushing it? What's your take on that?
It was really sad. Actually, you could see the Australian Diamonds crying, and you just think, they won that series, but at what cost? And I think all of them would have traded the win to have Sunday Aryang not injured, especially given it happens literally on the last throw into Grace Wecky to try and sort of level out this series decider time. Look, the Constellation Cup, I liken it to Netball Christmas, because I just think it is that exciting to have these two great giants going at each other. across both countries. And I think that's something to consider here, is the journeying that happens. And as I was saying to you before we jumped on, the days between the matches get shorter and shorter. So the recovery time gets harder and harder as they go through the motions. And what we really can definitely say with certainty is Australia can't play in New Zealand and New Zealand can't play in Australia. I mean, I've never seen a home advantage quite like it, I think, in so many sports. I just think, for me, the question for the Ferns is, why can't they do it? Oh, and Australia, like, why can't they do it? What is it that's kind of holding them back? And I think if you're traveling for the second leg in a second country, obviously you're learning, you're growing, you're adjusting. And these teams are they're packed full of the world's best players. So they are really kind of making these calls, making decisions, changing as they go. But there's got to be something, especially because both teams went out against South Africa before. So they were warmed up for this.
Yeah.
And then we had Australia took a 2-0 lead, 69-52 victory in the first test. That was whopping. And then 68-51 in Sydney. And then we crossed across the Tasman, and then it just all seems to like completely disappear into dust. So, and then the third test, New Zealand had a 2011 final quarter to win 61-52. And then the fourth test, New Zealand wins 62-57. So the Diamonds have not won in New Zealand since 2021, a test match. They have not won. And I just think that, so it extends New Zealand's win streak to 10 wins unbeaten at home against the world number ones, against the world champions. It's quite remarkable, really, Paul.
Ominous warning for Roses.
Yes, well, yeah, we'll get on to that, I'm sure. But I think here, lots of really cool things for both teams to have picked up, though. And I think I always am completely fascinated by Stacey Marinkovic, because you do have so many excellent players. So what level is she operating at? She's looking at combination, she's looking at styles. I'm always obsessed with her shooting end and the combinations that she puts together, because Australia, I think part of the reason the way they won the World Cup was that they had 4 shooters that all did something slightly different in different iterations and combinations. So yeah, I'm not going to play this combination until the final, and it's going to absolutely spank England. And it's that confidence and that trust to be able to roll that out in the way that she did. Obviously, they did drop a game in that World Cup. Let's be honest, it was to England, but the comeback and the thinking is really really interesting. Kate Maloney for me was outstanding for the Diamonds, and really stepped into that sort of centre role, given that Liz Watson has kind of been the leading light in the mid-court. And I do think Australia just make mid-quarters like nobody else. So that was nice to see. Georgie Horges, Paul, so good at netball. She's so good at netball. And I just think if her shooting can be accurate on the world stage, my word, she will be a problem. But you feel that of the new players that are trying to blend in, she fits in really nicely there and is such a little X factor. New Zealand started we should say, obviously, Noeline Taurua not available in this tour. She was still stood down. And let's come back to that as to where the situation is there. But the depth was started to really get looked at in New Zealand, and I think that was really important, because I think we felt coming into that 7 was confident, but actually there are some places where they really actually threw players at it, and they were like, go on, figure it out. And I think we're going to see the product of that against England, and how these players are really settling in. Their zone is still really effective as well, Paul. Still a monster. And yeah, I think there's interesting for Australia to have kept it at 2-2. I think when you watch the way they started and how they trailed off, that'd be something for Stacey to think about. But yeah, I mean, netball Christmas, but obviously with a bit of a rubbish ending.
I think your point about home advantage is always something that I think is interesting in sport. I think as we often say, we cover lots of different sports. We've got the Ashes coming up shortly as well. Like, there's so much sport crammed into international calendars now that I genuinely don't think teams have a huge amount of time to prepare for going into a new environment. And that might sound really, really ridiculous, but when a high-level sports team are used to having everything served up to them in a certain way and traveling in a certain way, and then if all of that changes and there are time changes on calendars, I do think that these are so finely tuned athletes that when they slightly get knocked a little bit out of sync, and it would be nothing to you and I, right? Like we wouldn't even notice that we've been knocked out of sync. But I do think it makes a difference, and the home records kind of back that up. I've always kind of felt that New Zealand, to a degree, know what they are, and then they want to kind of fit their players into that. I think maybe Australia. I think we all saw Geordie Hodges coming, right? I think it's been on the horizon. So to go out and see her, and I watched highlights more than I watched full games. So, but I was like, yeah, this is what we expected. This is what's happening. So to watch her evolution now over the next, I was going to say 12 months, but we're less than 12 months away from Glasgow. I think will be really interesting in how they assimilate her. Do they use her almost like as this impact player, or do they try and find a starting role for her to kind of start to formulate the team around? We'll know a little bit more, obviously, as games come on. I'm really looking forward to seeing Silver Ferns over the next few weeks. We saw them a little bit in Scotland. We can kind of touch on that. But really, the whole Noeline Taurua situation is, I think, something that's left most of netball social media kind of a bit bamboozled. First of all, what's happened? Then what is happening? And then did that just happen? It feels like that's how this whole thing has progressed. So I think it'd be remiss not to touch on it. Obviously, Noeline's going to be in charge over here again. She wasn't in charge for the Constellation Cup. Where do you think that leaves the Ferns as a bunch of players? Because obviously we've all read what's gone on behind the scenes and the investigations and the rest of it.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and one I hope actually we'll get to put to them when the England series gets underway, and we'll have them over here. But I do, from the outside, it does look like they've cracked on, and you wouldn't know from the performances that there is all of this going on in the background, and it did start because it was player led. We are talking about player complaints, of which have been leaked, which is unbelievable. Who put that out there, I think, is a really interesting question. But journalists over in New Zealand have access to that and have looked at them, and Noeline has spoken out as well. She's been interviewed, and she still doesn't really understand the investigation and what it was about. So despite that, they have come on court, been professional and got the job done. So maybe this is something we'll understand in 5-10 years down the line when some podcasts and some books are written. But it does, I think they are a credit to themselves, and for those that have stepped in to sort of manage the situation and still play netball at the end of the day, I think is quite impressive. But what I think is really interesting as well about these players is that and you might say one of the biggest winner of the Constellation Cup is SSN, right? Because of 8 New Zealand players, a bunch of which are Silver Ferns, will go to Australia and be in that environment. And it does feel like they are learning really, really quickly against Australia. I think that's one of the things you can say about the way the momentum of the Test series went. Grace Wecke, who these Australian players had got to know, started off really well against her. And then in the last 2 tests found another level. So there's clearly something to that group about still wanting the best for their country, still wanting to put out their best netball. But they've been really, really busy. Unfortunately, the Ferns. Fortunately, I don't know. Like as we were saying, we've got a Commonwealth Games coming up and a World Cup coming up. There are plans and ideas and thought process behind this, but they have been super productive even in the face of all of this.
Yeah, I think if we go back, I think I remember when you and I were covering in the build up to the World Cup in Liverpool. First of all, it felt like no one was quite sure what was happening with the Ferns, and everyone you spoke to, sort of who was vaguely plugged in, was like, no, these are going to be fine. There's a really good plan here. This is all building to a purpose. I'm pretty sure this wasn't part of the plan or the purpose, but it looks like encore, at least to your point there. Nothing's deviated. They've had what I will call, or you called, a stretch of the legs against Scotland over the last week or so. I don't know, maybe there's something in getting going as an away team there for them. You mentioned the slow start in Australia. So to maybe come over here and just have a hit out against Scotland and just kind of get the legs moving, get themselves in a position where they're ready to go. Because, and again, we'll talk a bit more roses in detail. Roses should be ready, right? This squad has been together for a while now. They've been in camp for a fair old while, it's fair to say. So I think it's a really, really good series for New Zealand to see maybe how much they've learned, and England to sort of see, okay, where are we up against someone who is bound to be a serious contender and competitor, not only in 7-8 months' time, but in a year and a half's time as well.
Should we get into
Quite
it then?
exciting. Quite exciting.
Yeah. So I think we probably ought to start selection before we start previewing. England team we got a squad for this tour against New Zealand that will be in London and in Manchester. And then we got a squad with one addition for Jamaica,
Yes.
which I don't know. I don't think anyone quite knows for sure what's happening there, given Hurricane Melissa really came and devastated.
Yeah.
As far as we're aware, it's all still going ahead, but I'm just something in the back of my mind saying, okay, let's see. But in all full intents and purposes, it's supposed to be 4 tests, 2 home and 2 away. But yeah, England squad. Paul, thoughts?
Shall I run through it? Shall we run through it first of all?
Yeah, go on, do it.
Okay, this is the squad that will face New Zealand. It's Halima Adio, Jazz Brown, Raz Quashie, Fran Williams, Fumi Fedoju, Beth Cobden, Amy Carter, Emma Rayner, Jess Shaw, Lois Pearson, Sasha Glasgow, Helen Housby, Eleanor Cardwell, Olivia Cheen, and then added to that squad for the Jamaica series will be Nat Metcalf, who we've not seen, having had a little baby. There's no Imogen Allison. That was in the press release. She was unavailable for selection due to injury. Lots of questions, I think. Netball Twitter was ablaze after the squad was announced. Big picture takeaways from you, Chloe?
Are we going to do the team or the way it was announced? Look, okay, I do think every time we talk about a squad announcement from England, it feels like we say the same things, but please contextualize it. Tell us, give us an insight into some of the decisions that were made. Why were they made? I just think, or a press conference where you put yourself out in front of people, and I think you've made these decisions. Let's hear you stand by them. Let's hear you justify them. Tell us why someone impressed you, why someone else still needs work. You mentioned they'd been in camp for a really long time. Well, for some time. They were in camp as of 4th of August. So these decisions about these players were made off the back of some serious evidence of camp environment. So I don't see why, as a head coach, or and there's a selection panel behind the head coach, we should say,
Performance director.
and a performance director. Let's hear it. You should be confident in what you're doing. You should be upfront about it, and let's look at the comms about it. Can you produce a video? Is there something that can accompany this so we can understand why you've made some decisions? Because there was some stirring and there was some articles that came off the back of it. It was actually quite a bit spicy for a change. But on that front, I was just like, oh, really? Again, have we not learned? And as you said, and as you have said, this is a really important time. This is the Commonwealth Games, so months away. We should be really interrogating these decisions that have been made. So that's it on a non-netball front. On a netball front, I'm actually by and large pretty happy with this team, I would say. I think it has a great blend. We have 2 debutantes in there, potential debutantes, but two Jazz Brown at goalkeeper and Emma Rayner centres of wing attack. And then you have some SSN experience, Sasha Glasgow coming back into the fold. And then you've got your usual suspects and ones that have been quite consistent throughout the cycle. I do actually think, looking across that, and I'll chuck it to you after this, Paul, but across that squad, there is quite a lot of unpredictability because we haven't seen some of these players. And I think actually that's probably a bit of a bit of a challenge for the Ferns, because Elle Cardwell hasn't worn a Rose's dress since October 24.
Yeah.
Lois Pearson, we caught her at the back end of an NSL season, but had a phenomenal time debuting last year, and only debuted last year because Nat Metcalfe dropped off, and actually Nat Metcalfe ended up dropping off because that's when she found out she was pregnant. Then we've had then you have Raz Quashie, who we did an excellent interview with her plug post injury. But you know how she's come off the back of that. She said it would be 16 weeks, and she's got herself into a squad. So by and large, she's ticking along, she's fit. So that would be really interesting to see how that all works, because I think there's some competition for that goalkeeper bib. And then we've had some, you know, Fever Swifts. That's Fran Williams and Helen Housby. They were in the SSN top 4. So across the board, I think there is enough in there, enough intrigue, enough excitement, and enough quality to kind of, you know, push against these top sides. What about you? What do you think?
I'll pick up on your first point first of all, because I totally agree with you. I actually had a quick scan through sort of England Netball's sort of Twitter and Instagram feed over the last sort of week or so. There's no real noise apart from the fact that sort of tickets are up for grabs. Like there's no real noise. Like I'm biased. I've been in content for more years than I would care to divulge at this point, but there has never been a better time to own your own content streams and own your like kind of interviews and your behind the scenes content, whether it's a league, whether it's a player, whatever it might be, promoters. Everyone's doing it really, really well. And we obviously have had the sort of interview that came with Jess in the press release, which sort of explained selection. But actually, and this is where I'll throw it to sort of the wider media as well, like, well, who's talking? Who's chasing down an interview? Who's going to ask some questions about this cycle? You know, we're a ambitious but small independent podcast. There are sort of bigger fish out there who can really be holding an England team to account for good and for bad, right? Like that's the point. I think the ability to be able to say, why have you done this? Why have you done that? Great, fantastic. I think we're seeing it in football at the moment. Thomas Tuchel's been questioned loads of times. Like I think there's a story out today where he said like, oh, player X, player Y, and player Z can't play together. And it was like, what? Like no one's ever had that kind of honesty from an England manager before. So this is not exclusive to sort of England netball, but I think what does feel exclusive to England netball is the ability to kind of question and get some answers. Having said that, that's me and that's my belief on content. I'm aware lots of different people might have completely different viewpoints. From a squad point of view, I'm with you. I like it. I still think I worry about us in that centre wing defence position. We've now got options at wing attack, which I think is good because Lois Pearson has played there for England. We've seen that. Not entirely convinced that's where we'll get the best of her, but she's certainly proved she can do that job. Nat Metcalfe is obviously going to be back for the Jamaica series. Emma Rain has had a really exciting couple of years and can also play centre, we should say. Like that's a possibility. Jess Shaw is in the squad as well as someone who can also play at centre. Hopefully we get to see Amy Carter have a run in that dress now, because it feels like she's been in and around the squad for a really long time, but has never been able to kind of have the chance, I suppose, to make that bib her own. And now she gets the chance to do it. Beth Cobden at wing defence being our only kind of option concerns me a little bit. Amy Carter can obviously play there. Fumi Fedosia is listed as a wing defence on the squad sheet, which will be interesting to look at. I think Fran Williams has played there in the past. Whether England see her there or not remains to be seen. But yeah, you're right. Lots of really exciting options. I think probably the one glaring omission is Alicia Scholes. And obviously that caused a bit of a social media rumpus, and she cleared it up for us. When we talk about transparency, Liz was perfect. She was like, fit, available, just wasn't picked. It's like, okay, fine.
Oh, it's fun. I don't know if it should come down to her having to declare
It
that.
shouldn't. It absolutely shouldn't. No way.
But obviously, there was a lot of animation about that. And all I can come back to on that, Paul, is that she is part of the Pulse team that did the treble. But I always come back to the fact that they've been in camp since the 4th of August. So something clearly was not right, because there actually, as you've pointed out, a string of wing attacks that have been picked above her. And she does have that connection to Liv Sheen, but there's also Helen Housby, there's also Elle Cardwell, there's Sasha Glasgow. So maybe it is about combinations and chemistry. One wisdom that I love from Tamsin Greenway, which is always like, okay, but what are you doing in those combinations? Like what actually, you pick your best players, but how do they actually go together? And I think that, and unfortunately I'm going to clutch at straws because we've had nothing official on it, but has to be kind of what we're drawing the line. There was obviously something there. She's not the tallest player in the world. And at international netball, is that something that they actually have to think about? I don't know. I don't want it to be as simple as that, and I'm sure it's not as simple as that, but that is something when you are coming up against a Kate Heffernan who's, I think, 1.80 m possibly plus at wing defence, like that starts counting perhaps. But yeah, it was interesting, and I do think I mentioned that goalkeeper question. It does seem to me this a bit of a crunch decision time. I wonder if we're actually sort of putting to test. You've got Raz Quashie, who's been kind of in that bib for quite a while, Hallie Adio, who's been looking for some momentum in that bib, and then you've got Jazz Brown, who has been so exciting and is something new. And I think something new is actually really good in international netball, because something new tends to hit quite hard and raise questions. You've got Grace Weckie, and I don't know who Jamaica are going to put up, but they have got Shimona Nelson, Janelle Fowler, and Romelda Aiken-George. So they're, in terms of two countries that are going to bring you the biggest test of a goalkeeper, you're looking at two of them. So I think also for me, like how the shooting end unfolds is really curious, because there is so much talent, but there is a lot of
there's a lot of question marks as well, isn't there?
Marks too, yeah. So again, I'm just going to have to, I think, Paul, for me, on this, I think I said this to you before we started, I don't think we go lightly on the Roses because of the prep that they've had. They've had an enormous amount of time together. So,
and the squad's good, right?
Yeah, and it is good.
Good squad.
We should expect a lot from the squad. On the wing defence question, I think you're right. Obviously, Imogen Allison probably would have been in there. Amy Castle can play wing defence. But I think obviously Beth Cobden is the obvious wing defence. Now on Fumi at wing defence, because you and I had an interesting chat before we recorded on this. A lot of people don't think she should be there because of her hops and whatnot, and obviously the way that Pulse play, they play her very intelligently, and she is a hunter. But for me, I say why not? Because why not? If you can coach her there, we should be adding, I think, something to the repertoire of Fumi Fidoju. Latanya Wilson can play three positions. Why can't we expect that of her? Well, and I think if you're a good coach and she's responsive, then let's do it. Like let's throw that out there, because if she can be effective, my God, she'd be a menace. And one thing that we can say for certain out of the back of South Africa, Australia, and Scotland is Maddie Gordon is a nightmare when she gets going with Grace Weckie. I think against Scotland, there was something like 31 feeds in 30 minutes. And then off to the bench she popped for a rest. So that is going to be so, so, so important, breaking up that connection. And I'm sure Shani Layton, England's defensive coach, will be looking at that really closely. But the wing defence position will be really important for that test.
And also, I suppose by extension, the goal defence position, Fran Williams and Fumi, is a real strength of England's. Like whether it's a starter and someone who comes on as a change-up, I do think that gives England real strength. And we've obviously seen Fran play a goalkeeper a little bit. We've spoken about whether Fumi might be moved out to wing defence a couple of times. Maybe the fact that there are three goalkeepers in there means we're going to see Fran at goal defence maybe as that kind of mainstay a little bit more rather than moving around. Because I think most people would say we've seen a lot of people moving into different positions, shunted around, playing in different places. I think I said to you as well, maybe we'll have to release the tapes of the pre-podcasts one day. I said to you before, if England had a win or go home game tomorrow, do you think you could name a starting seven? You said you think you could.
Yeah, I think I could. I think of this, if you ask me of this squad, I
This
think
squad,
I
yeah,
think I
clearly.
know what I think I think I know what Jess is thinking. No, I think that team probably looks like Liv Sheen, Helen Housby, Lois Pearson, Amy Carter, Beth Cobden, Fumi Fadoji, Raz Quashie.
Probably agree with you there. I think.
That's how you start that game. That's not how you end that game, I don't think. I think
No,
you roll it, and obviously this is netball we're talking about, but I think that's what that could change.
I would have a question for you in that as well,
Go
though.
on.
And I think this is true of most sports teams. Obviously, Fran Williams has been a captain most recently. Nat Metcalf has captained the team. There isn't what you would call a standout captain in that. Imogen Allison has also captained the team as well. Um, Maybe we could read too much into things from a captaincy point of view, but I wonder who leads that team out, so to speak, even if it's important, to be honest.
I think Amy Carter was Thunder's captain or co-captain, potentially the season just been. That's
And then
true.
Housby has the experience as
I would
well,
say
right?
that, yeah.
Yeah.
I think she's probably that linchpin. Um, but look, it could be that Elle Cardwell. I the only reason I don't put her in there is because I don't know how fit she is. Like, as
Yeah,
in,
exactly
how
right.
international match ready she is. Like, I'm sure she's ready, but like, is she the Cardwell of 2022, 2023 kind of the one that takes the Adelaide Thunderbirds to the title?
Yeah,
I don't know. I suppose that's the question. She's got a new knee. But I do think Liv Sheen is in her prime
yeah,
international, like, and that connection that she formed with Lois Pearson was really special.
yeah.
And Helen Housby, I think, is still near the top of her game. Probably, I don't know. Like, is she at the peak? Has she been at the peak? I don't know.
I wonder almost if having her if giving her a bit more of a leadership role, maybe takes her on that little bit more, because we forget she's been around for so long and she's
Yeah,
been so good for so long, and maybe just that. And we're hypothesizing here, and obviously you'll be at the copper box, so we get a chance to fire a few of these random questions that we're just firing out into the air. I wonder if actually a leadership role for Helen might take her game to the next level. I've interviewed her 3 or 4 times, have always been blown away by like her level of professionalism, how
mm,
focused, how driven she is. And I wonder, as we start to transition, we've spoken a lot about the next 2 years, being Commonwealth Games and a World Cup. But obviously, off the back of that, you would expect maybe a little bit of change as well, and maybe the next tier of players to start coming through. So we might need, a new group of leaders. I don't think Helen Housby is going anywhere anytime soon. So for her to sort of captain the team might be something pretty interesting. It'd be not just over interest the point, but it will be. That is something I'm keeping an eye on.
yeah. I do like this team. I think I do see. I'm gonna. We should expect from this side, I think,
Yeah,
is what we're taking away from this. This is
and that
there's
doesn't mean go away and win all 4 matches that they've got to play, or all 5 matches that they've got to play over the next 4 or 5 weeks, right? Because it's tough. They're playing really tough competition. But I think you want to see a plan, I think, in the first instance. And I don't think we've always seen a plan. And you want to see that starting to come together. And as you mentioned, connections bearing through, identities starting to form in different areas of the court.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the challenge of the Silver Ferns. I kind of
Yes.
pointed to quite a big part of that, which is Grace. Um, and Maddie Gordon really finding her feet in that wing attack position. That was one of the revelations, I think, of the Constellation Cup. And then, like I said, we saw it in in the most devastating way against Scotland, who put up a fair enough fight when you are number 10 in the world and they are number 2. Um, but I also think one of the nice other great things that we saw was Stythe she made her debut against Scotland for the Silver Ferns. She was really exciting. Another Jane Watson maybe in the making. But I do think that it's frustrating a little bit, because when you watch it on television, the camera on the centre pass doesn't necessarily shift fast enough. But the way the Ferns go into that zone structure on the centre pass defence is so amazing. And I think Scotland actually really worked on that between the 2 tests. And their shooting accuracy got a lot better as the game went on. I think actually that kind of let them down. Generally, errors kind of did, but shooting accuracy particularly. Um, I think England will have studied that so hard, and it's tiring work playing against the zone. So I think that's going to be really interesting for them. It is going to be about the engine in the middle and how you contend with that. And I think Karin Berger also has been really quietly quite outstanding also for the Silver Ferns, and she's a real leader in that group. So yeah, what do you reckon, Paul? Have you got any predictions for this one?
It's going to be close.
I predict good netball.
I wonder if New Zealand just being that little bit match sharper might just give them the edge in a game that I do expect to be close, or a series that I expect to be really close. I wonder if just having been through the sort of diamonds ringer and then come over here in enough time to have a decent hit out and just, stretch those legs and be ready to play. I wonder if that just gives them a little bit of an edge in the crucial moments, whether that comes down to sort of England have made a couple of changes at second and third quarter because they want to look at rightly a couple of new combinations, and just New Zealand might be just that little bit further along at this current moment in some of those connections and understandings. And that might just give them a little bit more consistency over 4 quarters as England try and use the 4 quarters. I think that's probably where I would come down on it. That might be being a bit over analytical, but I kind of think that's where the two teams come into this. England have obviously had a huge amount of time in camp, but you mentioned it when it comes to injuries. Being big game ready is a very, very different thing. Very different thing.
Yeah, I'm thinking 2-1 Ferns, but I think that there's going to be a title decider.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we're heading to Manchester with everything on the line, which would be good, right? That's what we want.
It's definitely what we want. But
you
I
need
guess
win or go home games in a year like this, because we know what will happen. We'll get to the Commonwealth Games, we'll get to the World Cup. There'll be one really meaningful game of the sort of group and early knockout stages, but really it's going to come down to that business end, depending how the draw shapes out, and you need to be ready to go in a straight knockout game, which I suppose is why I asked the question, if England had to win a game tomorrow, do you think you could name the team from it?
And I think also the back-to-back is really interesting.
Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, because we haven't really seen that yet. And actually then talking of a Commonwealth Games and a World Cup, that really mimics that. So, God, New Zealand legs, I hope they're in some ice baths. It's my word.
I think to your point about not going easy on England, so to speak, is right. Everything's set up here, right? Good opposition, like the opposition that they are going to face crunch games against. Sort of calendar, all mimicking what it needs to. Strong camp, good squad, as we've discussed. You can always argue the merits of any international squad about one player in, one player out, here, there. But that is a really good squad that should be able to go out and do its job. And now there is a block, until we get through to sort of mid-January, there are 7 or 8, I think, international matches, at least scheduled, where England can say, okay, come away from this, and what do we think? And then obviously there's a South Africa question there as well, because they play South Africa.
Yep. Yeah, I think it will be really interesting. I'm very excited for it, actually. I'm excited to be back into the depths of international netball.
Do you want to make a Commonwealth Games prediction now or after we've seen all of the international games? So maybe end of January pod.
Because there are rumours of a Australia series in February.
Yes.
Which I think is supposed to be Jamaica. So would it be end of February? Is that just really late?
No, it's not been late. I think it's interesting because I obviously prepping for a pod today, had a little look back at the last couple of Commonwealth Games. Obviously, England didn't medal in the last Commonwealth Games. They were gold medalists the one before that. It's like, okay, where do we think we are right now? And then obviously maybe let's go through the international cycle and then hopefully enjoy a few beers and a glass of something in Glasgow in July.
I'm going to say it's still Australia's to lose.
Yes, would agree.
And especially having these Silver Ferns and SSN, I think it's going to be so compelling and so interesting. And I think we see that Australia does benefit off the back of that. Jamaica for me is such a difficult one to pin down, simply because Shamira Sterling-Humphrey is coming back from pregnancy. Jodie Ann Ward is recovering from. She should start this SSN season. She's had an ACL injury. Janelle Fallon-Emard is still unreal. But you've got Shimona Jock in there. So whether they all come together for England, I don't know. I think part of the strategy for Australia having the series in February is to make sure that the best Jamaican players are in already Australia for SSN. So they will try. I think they've done everything they can to get the best possible Jamaican team, because it just so often happens that countries line up to play against Jamaica, and for some reason or another, it's never the Jamaican team that they're going to face in the major, and that's obviously really hard to prep for. So I think I am going to ask for the good grace of the end of February, because I think that's when we'll have the most intel. And I do think South Africa is a bit of a dark horse.
Yes.
If Jenny Van Dijk can really coach this team into structure, and there's so much talent there. Yeah, and they might be more World Cup ready than Commonwealth Games ready, I reckon. Actually, might say
that's
that
fair. But we know they're driven, right? We've spoken to sort of Shadeen van der Merwe, we spoke to Noeline, we spoke to Elmaray over the course of the season. We know that they fancy their chances. So I think for all the questions, England, New Zealand, South Africa, Jamaica, and Australia, 5 teams, all being potential medalists, I think is netball in a good place, at least on the court.
I would say find me another sport. Let's think about it. What other sport is there that depth? Maybe, would you say, rugby is certainly like a top 3.
Yeah, possibly.
But football, because there are lots of moving parts. But I don't know. I actually think that's a really good place.
I think it's a good place. And also, if you look at the tier underneath that, we'll get onto this in a minute in our any other business section. The tier underneath are growing as well. Like, we know about sort of the African nations and their real emergence. So Scotland, I know it wasn't tremendous against New Zealand, but New Zealand did kind of really put some stuff out there. Scotland are a team moving in the right direction, which is obviously a very hard thing to do in a sport where there are very clearly superpowers. Like cricket's the same, I would say. Cricket's got like sort of nominal superpowers who are there or thereabouts at the top of the game. England, Australia, India, South Africa. So, yeah, I think netball finds itself in a pretty good place, knowing that you could probably ask 100 people and you could get a fairly mixed verdict on what you would get for gold, silver and bronze at the Com Games.
Yeah, I actually have 2 things to say to that. I think Scotland, you just feel there's so many exciting players in there. I love Keris Finn. What she's been doing at London Mavericks has been really exciting. I think you've seen that, and she did get time in bib because of the situation at Mavericks.
Great at the Youth World Cup as well.
Yeah, you just want them to get contracts somewhere, and obviously the Super League, the way it's condensed down does that really hard. But you do need somebody to take a chance on some of those players, because there is potential there and there aren't a lot of spaces. So
also, by the way, I think, did you send me this or did I send you Scotland's Commonwealth Games countdown shoot?
Yeah, you sent it to me.
It was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually really cool in the face of England's dress reveal.
Yeah.
Which was another big old miss for me.
Didn't work for you?
It didn't work for me.
Dress is good. Do we think the dress is good?
The dress is much better.
Yeah.
I still am yet to be blown away by an England dress in the way that sometimes a Diamonds dress or a Kiwi dress with the storytelling that goes behind it is just next level. But I thought the advert was just, to me, it was like, what netball dress can I do that is most shot in the male gaze? Like plucking roses, giggling girls. Very weird to me. I just didn't think that was the message that we wanted to convey about this really exciting, powerful group of women who are representing their country on their sport's biggest stage. I just was a bit like, no, I don't know, a bit disappointed. But what do you think of, because I actually think
I kind of agree.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a sports journalist, have been since I was probably 4 years old, to be perfectly honest. So for me, it's always about the sport. So when it doesn't feel like it's about the sport, and that can be anything, right? That can be the debate. And I know sport has grown so much in the last sort of 25, 30 years that there always is more than just the sport in this day and age. And players are ambassadors and spokesmen and do so much good away from the court. But ultimately, my belief is that your sport grows by the product that you put out on the court. Like, so I'm always going to be a sport first. But yeah, I have to say it just looked a little bit confused to me. And I just thought that the Scotland kind of, was it the 100-day countdown, or it can't be
Mm.
100 days, whatever it was. It just looked really good, and it kind of captured the mood, or sort of set a scene as well. It was just really good. I liked it. I'm no one's idea of a sort of advertising guru, but I thought the Scotland one was really good, and I thought England's just kind of missed the mark a little bit.
Yeah. But yeah, I do. I think it is really exciting for Scotland that to have the Commonwealth Games and to be in there and to have all the home nations in there. We should say that, Paul. Actually, we have
Yeah.
our 12.
We have got our 12, haven't we? That's a very good segue.
Woo! Look at me go.
So Australia, England, Jamaica, Malawi, New Zealand, Northern Ireland, Scotland, South Africa, Tonga, Trinidad and Tobago, Uganda, and Wales. That's a pretty exciting lineup for a tournament, that.
Yeah, I think that's what separates the Commonwealth Games from the World Cup. It's even more, it's even shorter. You know, like
Yeah.
these are the best of the best.
Yeah, good 12 that. Hopefully we'll get some sponsors who'll sort us out, and we'll be able to go up to Scotland and deliver however many days of compelling netball content.
We've got the pitch, haven't we, Paul? We figured it out.
We've got the pitch.
You know who we want.
We've got the pitch. Yeah, we've got the pitch. Just need someone to buy in for us. Do you want to run us through some any other business?
Yes, actually, there's quite a bit of bits and bobs. Let's talk about Jo Tripp, because she's back.
Yes.
She sort of announced midway through the Super League season that she was not going to be the coach there anymore. Raised a lot of eyebrows and questions about what she was going to do next. She didn't really have it. It seemed at the time when interviewed that she didn't really know what she was doing. But she popped up first as an assistant coach at Loughborough Lightning, where she has been before. I thought that was a curious. Seems like almost a step back, a diagonal sort of step back, sideways back, and then she was announced as a head coach of the Thorns, which I thought actually was quite interesting. Like the growth of men's netball, I think is really really important for netball as a whole. And as a head coach of a national side, I guess, and at a time where there's sort of eyeballs on what England's men are doing. Yeah, what do you make of it?
Yeah, again, I think we probably all expected her to maybe take a role in Australia, or probably more specifically New Zealand at some point. So yeah, it was a surprise. She's done a lot of really good work with first sort of the Seven Stars and then Birmingham Panthers. So I think it was probably a bit of a surprise when we knew she was going to be stepping away, and you feel like she's been on a really good coaching trajectory, that the next step was going to be maybe a slightly bigger role in a slightly bigger competition, perhaps, or something. But yeah, it feels like maybe the plans she might have had, maybe we'll get a chance to talk to her in due course as well. But it's good to have her in the league. I think she's good for the league. And as you say, to have like an experienced campaigner on the sort of men's and mixed netball side of things, I think is really, really important. That's something that's obviously been continuing to grow. You would imagine an Olympic push, which I think that petition is now up to nearly 100,000 people for Brisbane as well. So there's people really working hard on this. Like the men's netball side of things is going to be kind of maybe part of that as well, if something, whether it's mixed, whatever it looks like in 2032. So yeah, I think obviously a good netball person to have around, but kind of a curious kind of 6 months, I think, perhaps is the best way to describe it. Good use of curious.
I think that's a good way.
Good use of curious.
Curious and curious. Then, second piece of netball merch. Well, we should say, a couple of weekends ago, Netball Aid happened in Birmingham. Talking of Birmingham Panthers, it was in the Utility Arena. Super exciting. I think there were about just under 5,000 people went. all sorts of celebrities involved for children in need. And my in-laws actually went along, and I got sent a selfie with my father-in-law, Barry Neal, and Antonio Mitchell. So that was hilarious. And also they got me this, which is
More merch.
more merch. For those not watching, it's a Netball Aid top. Sorry, in a really nice pink, Paul.
Yeah.
And then on the back it says, "Changing lives one pass at a time." Very nice. Thank you to them.
Yeah, really good. And, we obviously are kind of juggling a huge amount of other stuff, like in our both professional and personal lives. So that's why we've kind of not been around as much. But that would have been a really cool thing to kind of dig into a little bit. Saw a lot of it on social media, really worthwhile cause. And obviously some nice merch for you as well, Chloe. No merch for me, unfortunately, but, we'll get there.
Yeah, I'm fostering a reputation, Paul. I have to maintain it.
You are. What have you got now? You got like a mug, a hat, a couple of t-shirts?
Yeah, I've also got some SSN stuff that I haven't actually pulled out of the cupboard yet for you. I've been sort of I'm going to drip it out, but
Okay.
I was actually I went to a Seven Stars game last year, and I have a shell jacket from Melbourne Mavericks. That was a gift to me from a great friend, and I got spotted on camera. But it was fresh out of Australia. So yes, anyway, yes, I've got good friends over there shipping me over stuff, but all in good time, all in good time. I can't be showing by. Can't be showing
What
by.
do I have? I think the only thing I may have is a Vitality Netball Super League event staff t-shirt from my short spell with England Netball, which I run in now, to be perfectly honest. So it's probably not anything anyone needs to see, hear, or smell.
Gosh, what a visual! What a sensory overload
yeah,
that
what a feast that is! Yeah,
but no,
that's my
super cool.
merch. Season 2 for Netball Unlocked podcast. Get Paul some merch. That's going to be my plan. Not give me merch. I will get some. Is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I do think, actually, just as a side note, I do think it's something that Netball needs to step up on.
Yeah.
Because also, I mean, while this bucket hat is beautiful,
Yeah.
it is quite loud. But I would absolutely love some merch that I could just wear normally,
Right.
maybe not and I think that is, when you look at, I mean, Paul, like the WNBA and some of the stuff that all the brands that get stuck in. I actually have I bought my friend a New York Knicks hat that was like Diamante and like bucket hat. It was really cool from All Stars earlier this year, and I just think, gosh, netball, someone out there needs to be doing the most,
Whenever I head to the States, I have both my wife and my daughter telling me to look in the various club shops to see if they have got a Lululemon deal. So I did bring my daughter home back a Lululemon sort of running vest type of thing from Arizona State. So yeah, I think you're right. I think Netball needs to step up its merch game.
Damn, Lululemon is they're in NFL now, aren't they, Paul?
They are, yeah. When I was at the Vikings, when they were over here, it's a couple of weeks ago, a few weeks ago now, when they were over here, the press staff were all, when they led us down to the training field, all had like really cool Lululemon tracksuit bottoms or leggings, and then like Minnesota Vikings, because it was raining, Minnesota Vikings half zip with a cool hood on it. Very, very good. In purple as well. Vikings colours are wicked.
Oh, nice.
They look really smart. Like it was, not, stifled old press people in trousers and a shirt. It was, they looked cool as they were taking us all down to the training field. It was very, very impressive.
They also do Canada's Olympic kit as well, Lululemon.
Do they?
Winter and summer, yeah, because it's a Canadian brand.
You'll be off there soon, won't you? We're going way off track here, but I'm all right with that. I'm fine. It's been a while.
It has. December, actually, I probably won't be much on the podcast, Paul, because I'll be in Canada doing some more curling, which I'm very excited about, actually, because it's the last qualifier before Milano Cortina, so the Italy Winter Games. So that's
Can we get a curling gold medal prediction from you? Because we might not speak to you before the Winter Olympics get underway.
No,
we might, but we might not.
Yeah. I'm going to back the Brits boys, Bruce Mowat, for men's gold. Now I can't. So Canada has its Olympic curling trials, which I think is a fascinating concept. Olympic trials. It's something the US and Canada tend to do for their deepest or richest sports.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there
yeah,
are track and field,
yeah.
and
Brilliant.
the track and field US trials are almost harder than the Olympics because the
Mhm.
standard is so high. So Canada for curling, that's the equivalent, because Canada is like the Premier League of curling. It's the best
Right.
place. And next week is 10 days time is the Canadian Olympic curling trials. There is a
Okay.
team skipped by a woman called Rachel Homan. If they come out of trials, then they should win the gold medal for the women. I don't think our women's team will defend their gold from Beijing, because this woman is this Rachel Homan she's an absolute beast, a weapon, obsessed. Did a great interview with her. But yeah, she is really, really, really cool. She like won a curling event 8 months pregnant, and then had a baby and came
That
back
is
and then got
impressive
to the
work.
final. Yeah, honestly. And people that don't think curling is hard, Paul, I tried curling. I actually had a go.
Yeah, I
Uh,
asked you if there was video evidence lurking around about this, didn't I?
there is. It's not something everybody needs to see. I didn't fall, but it's really hard. It's hard. It's like three things at once, and you have to remember the rock is 19 kilos. It's like 44 pounds, I think.
Right.
So yeah, impressive stuff. But anyway, we've totally gone off track here.
We
Let's
have
get back
totally
on.
gone off track. We'll bring it round, bring it round. And the
Speak-
final thing we're going to chat a little bit about, I saw this on socials this morning, and that was Thunder's sort of tie-in with South Africa. And you were up there for a high performance day as well, weren't you? So we've got a couple of interviews, bonus content if you've stuck with us all the way to the end. But again, and this, I suppose, in some ways, and in various interviews, we've spoken a little bit about this, but the idea of maybe a Champions League of netball or these partnerships, because it feels like from the top, the very top, there isn't a huge amount of guidance for this sport to really take itself onto the next level. And I was actually having a conversation with my wife saying, I wonder at what point do we maybe see a few more tie-ups between an English team and a South African team, an English team and an Australian team, and whatever it might end up being. And there's a few little things permeating out there as well, isn't there?
Yeah, well, Carla Victor first is
Yep.
we saw at the Netball World Youth Cup. So exciting. The pace, I think, is really special. So that will be something that a lot of mid quarters have come through the hands of Karen Gregg as well as shooters, and I think what an opportunity for her. As we were saying, well, as I said, I put my neck out on the line earlier, and I said that South Africa, I think if they're going to peak, it will be a World Cup, and that trajectory for Carla Victor, if it starts here with this sort of Thunder environment, I think could be really excited. She could make her way into the Proteas. She's obviously in their under-21 team, the baby Proteas, so that's really exciting. And then with Sophie Fawns, Paul, who's
Yeah.
also in the country and will be, I think. Thunder will be very delighted because she's not on international duty, so they'll be hands-on there. So, I mean, I guess what an unreal opportunity for Carla to not only be in Thunder, but to be with Sophie Fawns from SSN. Like that's feeding her. It's pretty cool.
But
Yeah,
I just think before we go on, Chloe, we saw it a lot last year, or the last couple of years, that being in the training environment can really give you a little bit of a heads up or a little bit of an advantage when it comes to getting some, as it's saying, court time. And you mentioned Scotland earlier. A couple of the girls had been out there training at various stages. So it is kind of curious to see how these tie-ups kind of continue, because I think for the good of netball and for people who want to see netballers be able to earn a career across the globe, maybe these developments I think are really exciting.
and in a shock to none of our listeners that tune in often, we should plug Jace, because that's where we really spoke to him about.
Yeah,
I feel
absolutely.
like we always all things come back to Jace Bode in the end, but no, he sort of spoke candidly as the general high performance manager at Adelaide Thunderbirds about what if I have to give up Shamira Sterling for the growth of global netball so she
Yeah.
can play in the UK. Like I think that's something I'd be prepared to look at. So I think these
He
tie-ups.
also said about them keeping looking almost one or two cycles ahead. So they're already lining up who they might have for 26, 27, 28 even, you would imagine.
I mean, Elmarie van der Berg going over there, I think, tells you that. I think
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I mean, we get the impression that Elmarie has been around for a while because she has already done a World Cup and a Commonwealth Games, but she is 24, so
Yeah.
she's got legs in theory, so that super exciting. But yes, back to Thunder, back to Elmarie, Elmarie via Thunder, whatever, the other way around. Yes, I was really, we were really fortunate, the podcast, to be invited to Thunder's high performance. It's sort of like a whole day clinic, and I got to run around with my microphone and speak to some people. So
Very cool.
we're going to stick that in at the end of this, and I hope you enjoy it. You will hear again from Shani Layton, who it was quite funny to have done a great interview, Paul. I think it went down very well to catch her again in the flesh, and then see her in action. She's unbelievable coach. She was coaching the Thunder Pathway girls in front of over 100 coaches from around the country, which I think is, that's how netball develops. It's how it grows, is the dissemination of this sort of elite performance trickling down, and all these people were there with their pens and paper and phones and iPads trying to capture this, and you could see the pathway players just like looking at Shani like, oh my gosh, and just learning things, and so many tips and tricks and things. And Tracy Neville was there as well in the afternoon. We didn't get to speak to her, but I did catch her in action. So but it was a bit more 360 because there was strength and conditioning and nutrition. I think the nutrition chat, the interview, I think you would find that really interesting, especially because it's such a big part. I think now, as all sports, the professional game gets even more professional when the semi-professional game becomes nutrition and things like that. So important. So really interesting. And yeah, I hope everybody enjoys it, actually, because I enjoyed it. I had a great day out. Hello, and welcome to a rather special episode of Netball Unlocked. Something a little bit different. You might call it an away day. We were very fortunate to be invited to Manchester Thunder's coaching conference for high performance. So we're here at a bit of a rainy day. Storm Amy has wreaked her havoc up here in the north, but we are here in the Platt Centre and listening to Shani Layton currently in action. But look, it's a brilliant day. There's so much for us to get into, and the idea is to give you guys a little bit of an insight into high performance in netball, and to speak to some of the star guests that are at this conference, see who we can bother along the way. So enjoy. So joining me now is Chris Downham from Team Outliers, who did a presentation on warm-ups and S&C, but does so much more than that in his job. Chris, you come here today to this high performance conference. Tell us, what does high performance mean to you?
High performance means to me setting the right culture and actually getting people to understand that you can create athletic habits right the way through your playing career.
And you work with netballers. What is it about netball that is challenging for high performance, or where do you think people should be looking at in high performance netball?
What's challenging for high performance netballers? I think if we go back a little bit, so I think understanding high performance doesn't have to be at the elite spectrum. We can have high performance right the way through, and I would call that not necessarily accepting mediocrity. So, and you can do that right the way from coaching youngsters at a young level right the way up. And for me, some of the challenge that I think netball face from a physical perspective effectively is it's a really physically demanding sport. It's high paced, it's high intensity, lots and lots of skill. Your body is got to move at different planes of movement, so it's fully three-dimensional, and you've ultimately got to try and make decisions on the move. That's a really challenging sport. That requires your body to do an awful lot. So if you don't get the foundations right early on, then you can't actually go and do some of the things that you want to do, or you see some of your pros doing, or some of your high level athletes doing. So when we talk about sort of high performance, for me it's about making sure that we are teaching good athletic habits right the way through, so when they get to that level they can actually perform at their best and meet that athletic potential which is effectively what you're trying to do.
And how early should we be looking at these things if you want to have a good and successful netball career?
So I think of it like this: if you think about having your athletic potential at the top of the tree, so if you think about a graph, at the top right hand corner of that graph will be this athletic potential. Underneath that, you've got two main ceilings. You've got talent, and then you've got movement. So for me, you can all resonate with talented players. You'll have seen them yourselves. You might coach them or whatever else. But effectively, that bit of talent will always shine through. But if you don't master the movement ceiling, which comes first, you can never access that talent. If you can't access the talent, you're never going to get to the potential. So for me, understanding the movement is really important, and you want to start pretty early on. So like at Outliers, we've got a movement methodology that we've created with our physiotherapists and physiologists to teach athletic movement principles. And we took a long time over it. It took us like a year. We built it up, changed it, scrapped it, started again, and really started to look at the science behind what makes us move athletically in sports like netball, team-based sports. And we've boiled that down into classes that we were able to teach and actually take that methodology away. You want to be starting that as young as possible. It just looks different at different ages. So for me, it's making sure that when you're working with youngsters, they've got to be fun and engaged. I would argue actually working with some of your older athletes have got to be fun and engaged as well. You get more out of them if they do that. But making sure that they are doing it. They don't always have to, it doesn't have to look like the sport. It doesn't have to look like what you want it to look like all the time, but it's got to start to incorporate the components, for example. So we work a lot on split stance, scapular control, things like that. You might seem really basic, but you can make those fun and interesting, and you can do them through games.
And we see in netball as well a lot of injury coming at that top level, and I think as our sport professionalises, there's a lot of like catching up to do. What do you think folks could be doing now? What would you tell them to be looking at, like if there are like teenage daughters, for example?
The big thing about netball is it's got an awful lot of ground reaction force. So what we mean by that is they're actually jumping, landing, and when you think about doing that, you can put 8 times your body weight through different muscle sets in your legs when you're running, jumping and landing. Loading you up in the gym, I can't load anybody with 8 times the body weight. They won't be able to lift it. So one of the basic things that you can do with minimal equipment and stuff is plyometrics, and learn how to do plyometrics properly. So you can do plyometric primers, which is like small jumps, leaping, bounding really gently, and you can do that through an assault course with a group of 7-year-olds, and you're still learning the actual fundamental principles of how to move. And then you might want to take that into some skater jumps. You could put some med balls in place of having to jump with a ball and actually look at counter rotation. Rotation's another big part of netball. So starting to build the layers up as you work through it.
You mentioned in your talk, which was amazing, in a lecture theatre with over 90 coaches, I believe, that it's also important that people play other sports as well, like you don't specialise too early. Can you explain a little bit more about that? Because I think it was really interesting.
So there's actually some evidence out there to suggest that if you specialise too early, what ends up happening is you increase the load of that specificity on those young athletes, if we call them that. And then what happens is they're doing more and more and more, and they're actually starting to train a bit like professional athletes. You start to see them doing the same sort of volume as a professional athlete would do, but they don't recover like one. So the professional athletes have then got time to go and recover. They're sleeping in the afternoons, they're getting the best nutrition, they're getting cooked for. Those lot are going to school, and then they've got to work their brain, which takes energy. So effectively, we just start to fry athletes' central nervous systems over a period of time. So by playing multiple sports and trying to keep it fun, there's evidence to suggest that you don't overload them in one specific movement pattern or one specific sport, and that can actually lead to a more well-rounded athlete. They can start to pick up some skills and skill acquisition of other things that could actually effectively help them if they specialise later on. A really good rule of thumb would be like, if you think about a kid doing GCSEs, they take a lot of subjects, 10, 12, 15 subjects. As they get to A-levels, they specialise a little bit more, they're down to 3 or 4, and then when they go and do a degree or something like that, if that's the way they go, or they go to college and do an apprenticeship, then they're focused on the one thing. Think about the ages those children do that, and think about that might be the right time to start to specialise. Yeah,
that's so interesting. Actually, a really clever analogy there to do that with. And Chris, coming here and presenting in front of 90 coaches that are looking to elevate their game, how important is that to you to be in touch with grassroots and to really implement these really important principles, like send them down, basically pass them on?
I think for me, like the started team outlier is based on the fact that I think there's a gap in provision. So there's a gap in provision for a lot of people, young players, trying to get to their athletic potential and do the best they can. That's not the ones that always are super talented and you think might make it. That's for everybody. And grassroots sport plays a huge role in the fabric of our country. It's a fantastic thing for kids to go to learn lots of life skills effectively when they want to go to, they might want to go into university or careers and they're going into jobs or whatever else. Sport can be really, really beneficial, especially a team sport like netball where they're learning those things. So from my perspective, it's making sure that we actually share those things early on and get more people into it. What does it mean to me? It's really important to make sure that when we're doing this, though, we're coaching properly and we're actually teaching the right techniques. If we put more at the bottom of the pyramid like that and we allow that, we're going to have more people dropping out the pyramid at different levels playing the sport. That will grow the sport longer. It will make the top of the pyramid higher, but not only that, it will strengthen the game throughout all of the leagues and all the different areas in the country. And for me, it's about making sure that one, that helps their game, but two, we're doing it in a sustainable way, that the athletes have got some longevity and durability. And that's what we've developed at Team Outliers through that methodology, is to make sure they've got the durability to carry on.
And you have been here, we've just been watching Shani Layton in action. Have you picked up anything from her?
I don't know how you can't pick up anything from her. She's great. So I think what's really, really interesting is looking at the engagement, and what I'm seeing in the room as well is, like, I'm a coach first and foremost before I look at some of the other stuff, and I'm starting to look at how she engaged with the other coaches in the room, looking at some of the different techniques that she picks up on about how they move their bodies and things, and actually starting to work out, actually, how could I link in with that and look at the type of work I do. She's fantastic, and a big thing for me is one of the things that resonated with me earlier was she said, you've got to be able to let stuff go. So actually, when it looks a bit chaotic as a coach, that can be a good thing. If it all looks perfect, prim and proper, they're probably not testing them enough. If it's too messy, then you've probably put too much pressure on them. So for me, there's a happy medium, and I think Shani's doing a really good job out there to show that.
And are you a netball fan? Who's your team?
Well, Manchester Thunder, obviously. Yeah, absolutely. No, I know Karen, so really, really good. But actually, some of my friends knew I was coming today and were really interested in sort of passing me some stuff. And I used to play netball, I used to do this, have you seen these players? So yeah, I've really got into it. And I think from a hand-eye coordination perspective, it's fantastic. But actually, what people don't understand is there's a huge amount of athletic demands on these athletes. You've often got some very biomechanically gifted young people out there on court, and actually watching them move and then interact with the ball and how they do that with their players in space is a really, really cool sport. It's a sport that if more people understood it and watched it a bit more, I think they'd find a lot of pleasure in it.
And finally, what is your big takeaway from the game? What do you think, if you were trying to sell netball to somebody tomorrow, what would you say?
That it's got a position for everybody. It's really, really exciting. It's high-paced. It's fast-moving. You definitely can't get bored. And everybody I've met so far is really welcoming.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris. Super.
Is that all right?
Yeah. Well, I'm delighted now to be joined by Shani Layton, who is one of the main, key speakers here at the Thunder Netball Coaching Conference. Shani, what does it mean to you to come to events like this and catch up with grassroots coaches?
Oh my gosh, I love it so much, because this is literally what I do in Australia. And I think netball as a sport, we thrive and we live and we rely on volunteers. And I've personally, across the world, this is not having a go at any one country in particular, but like there's just not enough free information out there for coaches. And sometimes, even if there is, they don't even know where to go for that information. And so something that I'm really passionate about is making sure that I get through to the grassroots, because obviously the more we can teach them, then obviously the more talented netballers that we're going to have coming through the ranks. And I would hope, to be able to help them feel more supported in their journey, because I question myself as a coach and I played for Australia. So I can't imagine, the backyard volunteers that spend so many hours and years in coaching, how much they might question themselves at times as well. So to be able to help give them some confidence and as much information as they want, I'm just like, yes, take it all.
We were talking off the record before about whether you're more of a tactical or a technical coach, and your answer was technical. That's the stuff that really matters.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing out here today. What do you think are some of the key things people miss?
The the key things that people miss is the how we do things, because everyone wants to look fancy, everyone wants to do the really fun stuff. But I'm boring. I'm a boring Betty. I'm really good friends with Sarah Wool, who runs NetFit in Australia, and she's like, Shani, you're so boring. And I'm like, that I am. But girls cannot achieve, or players, men, boys, whoever wants to play netball, they can't achieve great things if they don't have the basics down pat. And so I was a part of the Melbourne Vixens this year. We went to win the Super Netball 2025 Grand Final, and basics and essential basics and footwork and passing and receiving and all of that stuff is something that we did at the start of every single training session. And so, like, no one is ever too good to be good at that stuff, and someone can always get better at that stuff. So that's why I love it so much. Of course I love the tactical, but I think that you can't explore what you want to in the tactical space if you don't nail the tech stuff first.
And so what we saw you coach today, are you coaching that with the Vixens?
Yeah, 100% I am, because what happens is it seems like basic essentials, but then all of a sudden there's another ball, all of a sudden there's another player. Sorry, there's not another ball, there's only ever one ball, isn't there? But all of a sudden there's more players, but all of a sudden that ball is spinning every single second, and your decision making has to change every single second. And whilst you're making different decisions, your body has to adapt into a better position every single second. So, it might be really simple to do those things if you got 5 seconds to figure out where you want to move to and how you want to place your body. But to be able to do that consistently, consecutively, second after second after second, is really bloody difficult. And even the best players in the world struggle with that. Even I, at the end of my career, still struggled with that. And then you're still adding decision making and which balls to go for and which balls not to go for, and whether to stay on your player and whether you want to switch and all those kind of things. So all of those tech stuff for me, it's just, you can never nail it all, because when you focus on one thing, it might be first ball contest, then all of a sudden your defense of the shot's gone down. So then you're focusing on the defense of the shot, but then all of a sudden your rebounds aren't great. So then you're focusing on the rebounds, and whilst you're focusing on the rebounds, your zero phase has gone to hell. So, like, the ability to be on every single part of your technical netball game for 60 minutes, or even 75 if you're playing overtime, it's a very difficult task to have, and it requires energy and mind at all times.
You don't make this netball thing sound easy.
That's the point. Otherwise, everyone would be doing it, wouldn't they? I don't want anyone to take my job.
We had you on the podcast, Shani, for a great interview, and you explained that your coaching journey is quite new and something you're learning. So to be out here must be also a bit of an experience for you to do a conference like this in front of lots of people. What is it that you hope people take away from what you taught to them today?
I hope that they take away some new drills, some new skills. I hope that they are, from here on in, heavily defence-based, because you can never have too many good defenders in the world. But most importantly, I just want them to become not better coaches, but more experienced in the how, and how they connect with their athletes, and try to understand why the athletes aren't executing what they want them to do. Because I think anyone could watch a Super League and or a Super Netball game, and you can see what they should be doing, but actually doing it's a very different thing. And trying to get an athlete to focus on what they need to do is also a very difficult thing as well. So if they can go away and think about how they're coaching, and if that coaching's not working, how they can do that differently, then I would be stoked that they even just got that out of the day. And then if there's some extra defensive tips and tricks that they got out of it as well. But that stuff's easy, because I can teach that stuff online. I can post videos about tips and tricks in that way. But it's the coaching side that I want them to go back, that it doesn't matter if they're 8, 10, 13, 26, whatever, that they're adapting their coaching style to whoever it is that they're coaching, and that person is learning it and taking that forward with them.
And a big theme out of today is high performance and high performance netball and what that looks like. What does that mean to you? A nice easy question for you.
High performance. High performance is just doing everything better than everyone else, really, at the end of the day. When you talk about high performance, it's just that then your life revolves around it. Like, you're focusing on what you're eating for breakfast, lunch and dinner, which is why it's so great that they've got, the nutritionist here today. You can only be the best netballer if your body is functioning in a way that it can move at all different directions, at all different speeds, in all different balances, at all different heights at any point in time, which means that you need an excellent S&C coach, which means that you need to make sure that you're getting the most out of your body, which means to make sure that you're recovering properly, which means that you're getting enough sleep, which means that you're hydrating properly. So you can see that, there's a lot of people that want to be in high performance sport, but there's not a lot of people that can handle high performance sport. There's not a lot of people want to play netball, but they don't want to think about netball 24/7. And if you want to be a high performance athlete, there are parts of it that are going to take over your life, and you need to be conscious of that. But then I also think there's a part of high performance that can get very serious, but you can also have a lot of fun with it too, I think, because you are focused on micromanaging literally you have to micromanage every part of your life. So if you can't have a game or a laugh or take the piss or whatever at the same time, obviously there's a time and place for that, maybe not in the middle of the session, but you've got to be able to have a joke to be able to make sure that what you're doing is still enjoyable, and having, I think, a reason why you're wanting to do that as well. So yeah, high performance netball is just about everything I just said, just taking it to that next level.
And the guys here are so lucky because they've got 2 lots of you. You're doing 2 sessions. So we did technical, and then you're going to go and do tactical, actually. Is that correct?
Yeah.
What can people that aren't here, can you give us a little sneaky insight into what that's going to be?
So the second tactical session today is just going to be about combination. So how you actually work with another defender and how you lift your vision to always have to look after your own first, no matter what style of netball you're playing. You need to make sure that you're doing your role first and foremost, but then how can you see everything else around you? And then how can you step up and be a leader in that defensive end to help shape the rest of that third? But not even just defenders, for goalers as well. So we'll do some goaling defence in the goal third, then we can do some mid-court defence, and then some in the defending third as well. So, but more about the combinations, the switches, the line of the ball, handovers, those kind of things.
Gosh, everyone's going to be a bit lucky for that.
Yay!
Well, thank you so much, Shani, for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Okay, well, now we are going a bit off the court, and I've got Bex Ward here with me. She is a performance nutritionist that works with Manchester Thunder, and you did a great presentation on nutrition to the 90 coaches that are here today. How important is nutrition in sport?
I think it's super important, not only because obviously people have the chance to eat so many times a day. Food is around you constantly. So I think it is so important to make really good positive choices around food and nutrition, not only for your performance, but also for your health. If you're not a healthy athlete, you're not going to perform to your best. Yeah.
Amazing. And I think one of the things that struck me with what you were talking about is the psychology of food. And particularly when we're at this top high performance sort of level, and making the right choices when it comes to food, and making that breakthrough and understanding how much food is a part of the performance. Can you speak a little bit on that? Because I think it was really interesting.
Yeah, of course. So I think it's definitely something that I wasn't aware of as much when I was at uni. It more took me to get into the space to understand how much food and nutrition is shaped around psychology. A lot of it in practice is a behaviour change, and how you create sustainable habits that ultimately shape your choices and change your behaviour. So it's all well and good you knowing the information. Of course, it's really good to know it, super important. But if you can't actually translate that into action and actually do the behaviour, then it's almost counterintuitive. It's almost redundant. It doesn't mean anything. You're not going to get the benefit from just knowing it. You have to do it. So one thing I mentioned that I use all the time is habit stacking, making use of the neural pathways that are already there and what you already do to then shape a new behaviour when it comes to food. The example that I used was waking up in the morning. 9 times out of 10, the first thing people do is reach for their phone. So it's like, can we put a glass of water next to your phone? Because then immediately when you wake up, you're then more likely to drink water. When you wake up, you're then hydrating. You're waking yourself up. You're not going into your day a bit more cognitively aware, not as tired. That will then benefit you just in your day.
So little wins where you can find them.
Exactly. Small wins that are sustainable. People tend to go 0 to 100, but you can do that for how long? 3 days. And then the tiniest shift just in your environment will trigger a complete downfall. You forget everything that you've done before, and you kind of go back to square one. Whereas if you start with small habits, small changes to things you already do, that creates a sustainable change, which over time adds up to huge benefits.
And we were talking before you came on the podcast that you want to go in as early as possible and help people understand early as possible the value of food. Can you share a little bit more about that? Because you were saying sort of under 9 level, like, let's start having positive conversations around food.
Yeah, I definitely think, obviously, the education that you give under 9s is very different to education you give an adult. I think it's making people aware of positive food choices. If you encourage positive environments around food from a young age, the impressionability, I don't know if I think that's the word, they are less impressionable when they get older to negative and really extreme views around nutrition. I think a lot out there at the moment, especially on social media, to get views, to reach people, is super, super extreme, and that's not beneficial. Nutrition is 80-20. It is 80% positive, 20%. You're allowed to have a burger, you're allowed to have crisps, you're allowed to do that because that's what makes it sustainable. And I think the younger you can make athletes aware that actually it's important that you're healthy and your habits are strong, that's what's going to benefit them in the long run. And the younger you get that in, the stronger the relationship with food, the more positive the relationship with food is going to be as they become a teenager and as they progress into adulthood.
And Bex, what challenges are there with netball and food? Or maybe it's not that netball specifically is the problem. What would you say to people listening about, or athletes listening, about how they can fuel themselves around a netball game, for example?
I think it's giving yourself dedicated time to actually fuel properly. Don't have it as a second thought. Have it as okay, at this point I need to make sure I fuel properly, because then you're going to get the best out of yourself. Mainly, you're going to get the best out of yourself and the best out of your team if you are fueled properly and you're hydrated properly. I did use this method. It's called the 90-30 method. I believe it's from Liam, the nutritionist, who works somewhere else. I can't claim it as my own. But he operates on the 90 minutes and 30 minutes before your session, before your match. You consume a high carbohydrate snack or small meal with some fluids, and then 30 and 90 minutes after the session you do the same thing, because then you're appropriately fueling, appropriately recovering, and you've got an hour and a half either side to protect nutrition time.
So the body can do amazing things if you help it along the way.
Exactly. Like I said, you're going to get more out of yourself. You're going to adapt, play better, which means probably feel better. You'll adapt better, and then you'll recover better. Like I said, high performance, you need to be able to perform at the next level. You're not going to be able to do that if you're not fueling or recovering. And nutrition helps with that.
You stole my last question in there, because I was going to ask you because I've been asking everybody what high performance means to them. Shani gave this beautifully articulate long answer, but I think there you said the next level. That's what it is for you.
Yeah, I think the next level. I also think it's different in high performance sport to high performance in general. You can be high performance anywhere. I think healthy habits create high performance. I think especially with food, an awareness of what's appropriate at what time is really important, and cut yourself some slack. Even with high performance, you need to be aware of it, of course you do, but we have a social life, there's life around it, and it's about choosing those moments and utilizing food to the best you can to get the most out of yourself, but also enjoy life.
Been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. Really enjoyed it. Well, wrapping up the end of the day, and I'm here with, the creator of it all, Karen Gregg. How are you, Karen?
Tired? No, great. It's been a really great day. We've had some great facilitators here delivering for us, and to see, I think we've had 87 coaches plus our own performance coaches on the day, and we've also had 60 young athletes meeting our NSL girls as well. So a lot of netball, a lot of really exciting information out there, and hopefully everyone goes home happier, feeling well educated.
So we caught up with Chris, Shani, Bex. It feels like an all-round sort of program. Is that what you were looking for with this sort of coach conference? Realizing that actually netball on court, that's only a part of it. There's a lot else going on.
Yeah, for me, as we all know, there's so many aspects of our game, and there's so many things that happen on the side that impact our game and what can help with the performance side. I think Tracy's down there now. I know you've not got a chance to speak to her, but she's doing a great session on transitioning to attack. But yeah, just to make sure we've got a real well-rounded program of making sure, like, obviously the coaches come and they want to get drills. They want to see people like Tracy and Shani in action coaching. But it's really important for them to be educated on how they can impact our young athletes, young and old really, because they're coaching all different ages. But to educate them so they can go back and talk about nutrition, answer some difficult questions, or at least they'd be able to advise, where to go to get the answers from, and understanding the movement skills of netball around the S&C and how Outliers and Chris approach S&C for me is a really exciting way. So to make sure that, the coaches go home with not just netball specific information, but what can help the athletes and the coaches help with the netball side, which is obviously your off-court stuff.
And I think it's been really valuable for us to get an understanding of also what you're looking at as a franchise director with your athletes, and through your pathway as well, that it is actually quite holistic. It's not just the performance as the output of actually all of this work that goes into it.
Yeah, the performance is just top of the tree, right? And there's a lot of branches on the trees, and you've got to make sure that, though, your tree's well nourished so that they can grow bigger and stronger and taller. So for us, it's making sure that we're able to provide that kind of program at Manchester Thunder, but have days like this that we know the coaches that are out there in the community that are ultimately impacting, and they've got athletes here that were here at lunchtime, and it's great to see so many here that we know are going to be impacting and ultimately feeding our club. And we've just rebranded. One of the key messages of the rebrand is that we are moving forward as one. It's not just about performance, it's about the whole strand of Manchester Thunder, whether it be partners, whether it be fans, whether it be our pathway, whether it's our community, our NSL team, and it's really important that we get that message out there that we are one. And I think days like today really help.
You kind of jumped the gun. I was going to ask you about the rebrand. You're wearing it, the merch. It looks really cool. How exciting is it? I guess we're going through this professionalisation era we talk about to have a new look for your club.
Yeah, obviously with NSL2 coming in last year and the way that we're wanting our league to grow, we're heavily going down the commercial route. We're not just a netball team, a netball club. We're a business. That we're trying to, as we say, embody everything. So to rebrand at this point for us was a really exciting time in year 2 of the professionalisation piece, and to be able to go out there and embody what Manchester Thunder is within a logo is really exciting. I think it's edgy, it's very Manchester, and it definitely gives us some flexibility with the brand to be able to grow it across all the strands that we're really aiming to pull into one. So it's been on the whole well received. I think there's still some education to be done around the meaning of the logo, and I think once people actually understand what the meaning of the logo is, they would definitely buy into it. It is exciting. It does mean we're moving forward as one. It looks great. The kit's great. VX3 have done a fab job on working with MC2 and us guys to make sure that we're looking pretty cool on and off the court.
And Karen, I've got you here. I have to ask you, because this is our first chat since the signing window. You've got your squad. Well, it's got to be said, it's quite a special one. And they're with you, or some of them are with you soon. How excited are you for your squad this year and what's coming up?
I wish the season was starting next week, right? Like, when I was able to pull the squad together that we have, I couldn't have been more excited and just chomping at the bit to get going with them, really. I think they're not only a great group of girls, they're a great group of athletes that I think are really going to complement each other well. I think we've got a well-rounded squad with the positions that we're able to cover. I think every position on the court we can cover at least 3 times over with the squad that we've got, which I think is really, really imperative at this point. And to get the signatures to bring Eleanor home, obviously really excited to have her back after experienced that professionalisation in Australia is huge, and she's really keen to drive that forward at Thunder. And young Aussie gun, Sophie. I've been watching her play since she made a debut out for the Swifts four seasons ago, and I think everyone knew back then that she was going to be a special player. So for her to choose us, I spoke to her, and I don't know what I was expecting, but I don't know if I was expecting her to want to come over to England, but hopefully my selling piece was convincing enough, and we had a really good chat. She's a really great girl, and I can't wait to get my hands on her. I still think there's lots of untapped talent in there that I really want to squeeze out of her while she's here, and she does arrive early November, so excited to get hands on her. She's going to be heavily 1 attacker and 3 defenders for a few weeks until we get our Roses girls back in, but I couldn't be happier, and obviously aims for the season. we obviously want to win. We've been a bit dry over the last few years in not having a trophy, and that's definitely something that we want to change.
Love that. Karen, thank you so much for your time and for letting us come to your conference.
Thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
Good stuff there. I will be handing this to my daughter and telling her to listen to the nutrition expert, because I think as parents, always got to try and make them eat properly, because they won't eat properly unless I actually make her eat properly. But I think that's it, haven't we? I think we've ticked all boxes. I've run through the running list while we were listening back to that interview. I've checked off netball squads. I think we're in good order.
I think we are. I think now we just got to let the netball do the talking, hey?
Yeah, and you're going to be at the Copper Box, right?
That's the plan.
That's the plan.
Very excited.
And then obviously we'll see what we can kind of squeeze in between sort of now and then obviously Jamaica as well. You've got your commitments. I'm moving house. We will try to be back with a bit of a wrap. That's hopeful. We're hopeful of that, and we might have a special guest as well.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. And then we'll take it through there. So yeah, we'll see you next time. But as usual, kind of follow us in all the usual places, and we'll be back in touch soon.
Bye.